This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
I mean, we're all playing these teams, and the unfortunate part is what only counts is on the scoreboard. And so it's just the way it's going. And sometimes you're beating teams and you don't deserve to, and those always feel good because you're getting the points. And these ones sting because you're playing pretty sound hockey and you're not getting rewarded for it. And so, our job is to make sure that they don't change the way they play, that we just keep plugging along and keep doing the right things, and eventually you'll get rewarded, just as we've been rewarded for 15 games before this.
Howdy. Yeah, rewarded. It's something that I think has been a bit frustrating here the last 3 games. It is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.
You think?
For as good as they played, or let's phrase it this way, for as many points as they accumulated during the 7-game win streak, the way they played doesn't necessarily reflect that they should be 0-3 their last 3 games.
No, they should have at least gotten points. Maybe out of all 3 of them, Greg.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So that's the part that I find is probably the most disappointing. We can get into how they played, we can get into production, and that's fine, and that's fair. We can talk about the Islanders game as we get set for the game tonight against Toronto. You're on the road.
Yeah.
And
I was furiously typing information about the skate as we got into the open, so I'm not good at juggling balls.
It's okay. It's
now
all right.
I'm focused on the show. I'm focused on you. Gabby Shirley is not traveling.
Right.
As most people know, she is expecting a little bundle of joy. So
yeah, we know those.
Gabby is grounded for now. Yeah. And I realized, wait a minute, she normally posts the lines. So I'm like, well, I saw the lines. And I said to Steve, do you think I should post the lines? He's like, yeah. And then
Why
promote
not?
the show. So I was typing. I'm not used to typing all this stuff.
I'm going to look at my phone here. Did you post
I misspelled. I misspelled
Gensel.
No, I didn't. I misspelled Gensel. Then I was like, sorry for misspelling Gensel. I forgot a T in there.
You're allowed to.
Because I was hurrying. We can go over all of that as well. And I don't know if you want to start with kind of the news as far as the lineup tonight, or look back at Saturday's game.
Let's do the news first. But the big point I was going to take away from the last is you just didn't get any points, which is unusual considering that they played pretty well.
And we had some intrigue with another hand pass goal that was allowed to stand across the state, which sat not well at all with Lightning fans, and I'll give you my take on that. I saw some comments like this just confirms the league's bias. I have a different take, as you might expect. But as far as it relates to tonight's lineup, so earlier this morning, the Lightning put Vasilevsky on IR. That means he cannot play tonight, he cannot play tomorrow. He has to sit out a week. Clearly, they know he's not able to play tonight or tomorrow. So Jonas Johansson gets the start tonight. Brandon Halverson is the backup. I would expect Halverson to get the start tomorrow. This is not like one of these back-to-backs where the Lightning are going to be rolling into Montreal at like 7 o'clock at night, where you might say maybe Johansson both games. Halverson is up. He's been an AHL All-Star. He's played for them before. Got a start last year in Utah. I think Halverson plays tomorrow in Montreal. Johansson gets the start tonight here in Toronto. Nikita Kucherov is in the lineup. So he missed the game on Saturday. They could have used him, frankly. I mean, where you're looking for offense, and we know Kucherov can conjure up some plays, whether he's scoring the goal or creating a chance for a teammate. Too bad he wasn't able to play on Saturday, but he only missed the 1 game. He's in the lineup tonight, and Braden Point returns after missing 7 games due to injury. He is in. I have no doubt about that, as I'm kind of seeing who is out on the ice late. So of the 2 players that got injured on Saturday, Curtis Douglas and Dominic James. Douglas is out on the ice and was participating in the skate, but he is not playing. I don't know if this is related to the fact that he's still not 100%. He may be, he may not be, or they just made a coach's decision to keep him out of the lineup tonight against Toronto. Douglas is the lone scratch of the guys who were on the ice for this morning's skate. And James was not on the ice, so that's not good news. They have not put him at this point on IR. Point was on IR. I'm really giving a lot of information here. At some point, I expect they're going to activate him because it certainly appears that he is going to be in. They ran the power play units. So with Kucherov back and Point back, we see that first unit almost back to the way it had been. Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Bjorkstrand, Radish. Bjorkstrand was at the circle again. Point was in the bumper. We talked about how Bjorkstrand seemed to be quite comfortable in the bumper and did well in that Pittsburgh game where he got 3 scoring chances. That's how they ran it today. Assuming they get a power play chance tonight and they run it, I would expect Point to be in the bumper and Bjorkstrand at the circle based on how they ran it this morning. But Jeff Halpern knows he has this in his back pocket that he can move Bjorkstrand to the bumper, switch him and Point if they need to, and maybe it'll create some chances for Oliver. So there's your update as far as the Lightning's lineup. So essentially, Point and Kucherov are in. James and Douglas are out. Paul is on the line with Point and Gensel. You got Kucherov back with Hagel and Cirelli. You got the Gord line, and then you got Gonsalves, Bjorkstrand, and Finley. The 6D are the same, and the pairings are the same. So Hedman is paired with Crozier. I thought they did a good job the other night. I thought they were very solid against the Islanders. Hedman did not see any power play time. He was working with the unit on power play 2. So Dastu, who's been on power play 2, was not when they were running it. So there's my comprehensive update from what I saw this morning here in Toronto.
It's a lot of stuff. I mean,
and, you know, this stuff is, take it with a grain of salt. If this game starts not well for the Lightning, John Cooper will put the lines in a blender. The Lightning have to find a way to start beating Toronto. They lost all 4 games against the Leafs last year. The final game they lost in overtime. But, you know, the common denominator, Greg, in all 4 of the games last year, they never got the lead in any of the games.
Good point.
They fell behind. In the one game where they lost in overtime, they got it tied. In the third, they got a tie. They were down 2-0. They tied it at 2. They fell behind 3-2. They got it tied 3-3. They lost in overtime. In the other 3 games, they fell behind. In one of the games, I think they tied it at 1, and then they got run over basically, and they could never get back into the game. So the Leafs were really in the driver's seat in the season series last year. The other part that we're not going to really have to discuss tonight, Vasilevsky has struggled more recently against Toronto. Clearly, he won't see them tonight. He played in 3 of the 4 games between the teams last year. Johansson got 1 start. It was one of the games here in Toronto. Right. Lightning lost that game. And one of the other starts that Vasilevsky had, the other game in Toronto, he got pulled, and then he lost the 2 games in Tampa against the Leafs. But it's Johansson tonight. This is a division rival, and we can get into the Leafs. They have not had a great start, but they're starting to play better.
Yep.
They've had a lot of injuries like the Lightning. Some of their guys are back. Some of them aren't. Lightning need to snap the 3-game losing streak. They need to do well against a divisional opponent that's had their number the last couple of years. And as the curtain is coming down, I remember this last year. I'm going to have some mood lighting here. I'm in Scotia, what's it called? Scotia Center or something like Scotia Club. So
fancy.
Yeah, there's nothing really happening on the ice on the other side of the camera. Anyway, Greg, I did a lot of talking. That's our lineup for tonight. And hopefully tomorrow we're on the show talking about a strong Lightning performance like they've had during the losing streak, but this time they get rewarded with points.
At Bolts Radio, if you want to weigh in. So a couple of things that come to mind. The Andre Vasilevsky situation, I think, is just interesting that you're starting goaltender. You want to monitor. And anytime your goaltender is out because of an injury, you want to monitor it. We know that he is not physically the same, not in a bad way, but he's older than he was 10 years ago. I mean,
and they are terming the injuries day to day.
Yeah, he's had a tinker with how he goes about training and rehab and recovery. So I think anytime your all-world goaltender has to sit because something's nagging him, you want to keep an eye on it, for sure. The benefit here is Johansson has played well. And you've got to think, getting into some rhythm here, that maybe his game can even go to another level in the short run, hoping that Vasi does come back in the next handful of games. I mean, the other thing I just take away from it is that Cooch and Point are back. So, you know, for a team, obviously, that struggled to score a goal in their last game against the Islanders, I think particularly Point. I think
and
we
not
wanna
on the
see,
same line.
Yes,
too.
which I think is smart.
Yeah.
By the way, I think it wasn't working, and we had talked about this for Pointer being out of the lineup for a few games. Could this be a chance for him to not only reset physically, but also reset mentally? And I know that's a little cliche, but you do look for positives in something like that. Does Braden Point come back, oh, by the way, in a divisional game, as if his pants are on fire and just comes out flying and maybe gives his team an added spark? But those are your two best offensive players. Gensel, of course, included in that trio, along with Hagel at the forward position. But I think Point and Kucherov, when you look at this team objectively, are the big guns. They're the ones who are going to be hitting 120 points a year, 40 goals a year, who a lot of teams have to game plan around them. If Point can come back and provide that oomph that maybe was lacking in his game consistently before the injury.
Probably, I mean, he's pretty laid back, Greg, but, I mean, he has to be aware that, like, he is lagging behind a lot of the other top guys, and he just has to look at his plus-minus still, because he got injured at minus 11, and after he got injured, the Lightning started generally, like, everybody's plus-minus went in the correct direction, including Kucherov's. Kucherov wasn't quite as bad a minus as Point, but Kucherov started playing with Hagel and Cirelli. They were scoring. They were on the ice for empty net goals.
Yeah, right.
Kucherov's now plus. You know, Hagel and Cirelli were, I think with Moser, were the top three plus-minus guys before this losing streak started. I think they were at plus 16. I think Moser's still at plus 16. The other guys may have dipped a little bit, but not much. I mean, we talked about, remember when the Lightning saw Calgary, I was like, look at the difference between Kevin Ball at plus 13 and Mackenzie Weegar at minus 19. That's a difference of 32.
Yeah.
Points at minus 11. You know, some of the other forwards are plus 15, plus 16.
Sure.
That's a huge gap. So I'm sure Braden's like, I need to make my stats look a little bit better. I mean, he's not really wired that way, but I'm sure he's aware of it and just wants to start contributing more than he has.
Yeah, and it's going to add a boost if he gets back to the Braden Point level of production we're used to seeing. Get Kucherov back, of course. So, I mean, this is like bringing in two new players, essentially, for this game, particularly Point, who's had, you know, he's been out a little bit longer, obviously. But I think an opportunity for the Lightning to also say tonight, okay, the mini 3-game losing streak stops.
Yeah.
Because the longer this goes, it negates what you did with that 7-game
That's
win streak.
exactly right. Like, they put themselves in a good spot. They're still one win away from hitting playoff pace. They need one win or 2 points in the next 2 games. They needed one win in 5 games, though, to get there, and they've lost 3 straight in regulation in frustrating fashion, all 3 of them in slightly different ways, but especially the last 2. So if they can get a win in the next 2, look, they're back on playoff pace. You end this losing streak, kind of turn the ship around. I think what's encouraging, though, and maybe we can get to the Islander game at this point, Greg,
Let's do that.
Like what's encouraging is the Lightning are playing, they're playing better than 0-3. Now, in some of the games that they won, there's a little hook or by crook. I thought the win in Washington was, I mean, they scored enough in the first period, and then they kind of hung on, right, in the final 40 minutes. Maybe did they deserve a regulation win in that game? Did Washington deserve something better than a regulation loss? I mean, if you give up 4 in the first period and you're Washington, it may be hard to make that argument, but Washington played pretty well in the final 40 minutes. So you get a game like that the Lightning put in the win column. Now you have 3 straight games where generally you did enough to get points. Just a few things went wrong and you couldn't overcome that. That's where they are. Mm-hmm. But the defensive play has still been good, especially 5-on-5. I mean, the Penguins scored 4 goals, 2 were on the power play. The Islanders scored 2 goals, neither was 5-on-5. They scored a power play goal and they scored a 5-on-6, which technically, I mean, it counts in plus-minus, but it's not a 5-on-5 goal. So, I mean, the Lightning's 5-on-5 defensive standard has still been quite good. And let's be honest, like the one goal that Malkin, the breakaway goal that Malkin scored was an absolute Christmas present. So, I mean, the Lightning really haven't been doing that, and we saw the effect of that. Hagel got benched, right? So, I mean, those are the sorts of plays that are going to hurt you 5-on-5 defensively. The Lightning really haven't been doing that. That was an isolated, I mean, they had other errors in the second period, but like in terms of goals allowed 5-on-5, they kind of gift wrap that one. They haven't really done that even through the losing streak, which is one reason why these are all close games.
Yeah. Well, I want to piggyback off of what you just said. Not only have they played pretty well these last 3 games, they're defending.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, 60 minutes, you're going to have some breakdowns in a game. And we saw that with Pittsburgh. I mean, you gave them a couple of chances and they capitalized. But
yeah,
it's not like they're giving up 6 goals a game.
No.
I mean, Dave, look at the Islanders. I mean, look what they gave up.
Out-shooting teams, out-attempting teams.
Yeah,
like
that's
they're
what's
leaning on teams.
And that's what's so disappointing. And look, that's relatively speaking here, disappointed. I mean, it's a long season. But, you know, typically you'd look at this, okay, out of 6 total points during that time, the way they played, could you see them at least getting 2 out of a possible 6? Like, they got nothing. So that part is unusual, which is why I think there's a little bit more urgency for tonight's game. You know, would this be easier if you had 3, if you earned 3 out of 6?
Yeah.
In your like, you don't feel as empty. You didn't get rewarded for anything.
Right.
The last 3 games. And so that's why tonight, oh, by the way, it's Toronto. It's a divisional game.
And you're going into a 4-game road trip, which
So
I know the Lightning have done well on the road, but
yeah,
it is hard to get points on the road. So I agree with you. Like they should enter this game committed to try and stop this losing streak, but they're playing well. I mean, they're not playing perfectly,
100%.
but like we often talk about the first building block, urgency level, compete. Like that's been there.
Right. It has been.
You know, their mistakes have not been mistakes due to being flat or being outworked by the other team. I don't think that's been the case at all. So let's get into the end of the Saturday game.
Please do.
Which it was another game. I think if you were following the game, at the game, listening to the game, watching the game, you're a Lightning fan, you're like, this left another sour taste. Maybe not quite as sour as the Pittsburgh game, but on the heels of the Pittsburgh game, this one left a sour taste. So let's jump ahead to 10 minutes left in the third period. I thought it was a well-defended game through 50 minutes for both teams. The Lightning, objectively, did have more scoring chances than the Islanders, and I thought that game maybe had more scoring chances than the first meeting played earlier in the week on Long Island, which the Islanders won 2-1. That was more of just a nothing game where there weren't a lot of great looks for either team. I thought both teams had some looks. Both goalies played well. The Lightning probably had more dangerous chances than the Islanders did. Sorokin was very good and denied the chances that the Lightning got. But again, the standard of defensive play was pretty high for both teams. So you're at 0-0, 10 minutes left. There's a play in the neutral zone. Brandon Hagel is tied up with Kyle McLean. The puck is near them. Standing adjacent to them, right in front of the Islanders bench, is Casey Cizikas. Hagel's stick clips Cizikas. Referees do not call the penalty. They probably didn't see it, honestly. Cizikas falls down. He's on the ice. He's cut. So they stop play. Referees go over, look at Cizikas. They see he's cut. They're like, we're going to review this. So fans might be like, well, why are they reviewing a high stick? I'm not sure if we had this earlier in the season where I'm like, you can't review a minor for high sticking. But if it potentially is a 4-minute double minor and it reaches that level if the player that was high sticked is cut, what the officials tend to do is they call the double minor almost after the fact. And then they're like, we're going to look at this on review, to see if it in fact was the stick from the other team. Like if it's friendly fire, so to speak, or the player's own stick, they can rescind the penalty entirely. But this is typically done by officials. They're like, okay, we may have missed this. The player's cut. Let's call the penalty so we can, that opens the gate so they can do the review. They do the review. They see that Hagel's stick is the stick that clips Cizikas, so they call the double minor. John Cooper's point after the game and why he was frustrated was he felt McLean in some capacity affected the stick's trajectory. Now, I have to be honest. When I was watching the replay, and I only saw it a couple of times, I was looking at, was it Hagel's stick? And it was. I wasn't looking like, how did the stick come up? And even the angle, like it's the back of McLean and Hagel, so you can't really see as well. Like, did McLean push Hagel's stick up? Coop said he grabbed Hagel's stick, I think. I mean, I don't think he grabbed the stick and yanked it up, but I think that there was enough gray area there where Coop was like, they could have let it go. So just to be clear, if you high stick an opponent, but somebody else is lifting your stick, like from the other team, so I don't think it's a penalty, right?
Let's listen to the man himself.
Okay.
It's just tough for me because, McLean had a stick. So now, there's no doubt that it was Hagel's stick that clips Zizekas. There's no doubt about that. But I just, I thought this was a game that the players should have decided. And there could have been opportunities for that, but it didn't. In the end, we have to kill it off. We didn't. And that was unfortunate.
Yeah, so what he's basically saying is, this is a 0-0 game. Do we really want to give the Islanders 4 minutes of power play time on a play where Hagel, like his stick, it's not like it just came up on its own.
Right.
But they called it. Okay, they looked at it on replay. Unlike the play against Pittsburgh, like I can't argue with the call. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of a gray area, but look, he clipped the guy. He did. It was his stick. Zizekas' cut. Penalty. Okay. Not ideal. You're in the first half of the kill. So again, if the Islanders score in the first 2 minutes, they get another power play. You got to kill off all 4 minutes, but if you give up one in the first 2, there's still a second power play there. So the Lightning are doing a good job on the first kill. It's ticking down toward like 2 minutes left on the overall penalty, so the Lightning are nearing the end of the first kill. They get a break out of their own end. And, of course, they don't have Hagel during the 4-minute kill, which also wasn't ideal. Gensel and Cirelli bring the puck up. It's actually Gensel with Cirelli. They move into the offensive zone. Gensel angles from the right side of the ice to the slot, loses the puck, and you see him shake his hand, look back at the referee. Now, Phil and I went bananas on the air. There was no replay of this because it wasn't a play leading to a goal or a chance. TV didn't zero on it. Coop didn't even mention it. So maybe we didn't see it right, but if you see a player in a position to shoot lose the puck when the guy behind him is checking him and he starts shaking his hand, looking back at the referee, that tells you there was a slash. And this is another situation where the referees are like, maybe they didn't see it, but you just gave, to the extent that there was a little bit of gray area in the 4-minute penalty, this in some ways was less gray. You're denying a potential play at the net. You let go a slash, and you decided to just let the power play continue. If they call a penalty there, the Islanders do not score in the power play. I mean, there was probably like 2:10 left on the Hagel minor. So if you go to 4-on-4, I'm not saying the Islanders don't score. Maybe they score 4-on-4. That power play is over. Cal Ritchie does not score in the power play. That's what was frustrating about it. And look, he made a good play. I mean, there was a little bit of a benefit there that the puck bounced off the end wall. He put the stick between his legs and chipped it off Johansson. That's a tough read for a goalie because he's out challenging the original shot. It goes wide and comes right back in front. And of course, Lilleberg broke his stick during the kill. So the Lightning during that sequence were down a man and a stick. Cirelli's trying to give Lilleberg his stick as the puck is going wide. So, I mean, there's just a confluence of thoroughly and completely bad luck that led to a good play made by Ritchie. So the Islanders got the goal that they needed, and they locked it down pretty well. Sorokin made some good saves. The Lightning tried. They had another fairly dangerous 6-on-5 like they had in the first meeting between the teams, but they couldn't get the puck past him. And then, Zizekas scores into the empty net for 2-0. But it was basically a 1-0 game on a power play goal that happened, but you can make the argument that either they don't call the double minor on Hagel or they call the penalty where Gensel was slashed and the Islanders don't get a chance to score in the power play. And it was a well-played game by both teams where the Islanders got the break unrelated to anything that they did. Again, it was kind of video review, right? Coming on the heels of the Pittsburgh game was an extremely difficult pill to swallow.
So a couple of things for me. By the way, I didn't think Sorokin was outstanding. I mean, I thought he was good. There was a lot of talk about, they got goalied. I didn't, and that's a credit to the Islanders.
I thought he was more under siege in this game than in the earlier game. Like, he did stop Cirelli in the power play right at the top of the crease. Like
from Hagel?
Right, but the Lightning were shooting low. And Phil and I were talking about this, and he was stopping everything. I mean, look, he could have slid through his pads. He made good saves.
Yeah.
But he was not asked to make saves on shots middle of the net up.
I didn't think I didn't come away from that game thinking, my goodness, he Tristan Jarried them.
Mm-hmm.
And, for a lack of a better term there, and knowing that Jarry played a lot better. Let me ask this question for
Let me just follow up on that point, though, because, I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Wow.
What I took out of these 2 games against the Islanders, they can D up.
That's exactly it.
That is one of the better defensive teams that I've seen
correct.
this year. Now, I don't know if it's going to continue. They went to Sunrise, of course, the next day. Yesterday, they played David Riddick. Panthers scored 3 plus an empty netter. Look, they're not going to be perfect every game, but they're without Romanov. They're without Palmieri. They have injuries. They're without Pajot, one of their top penalty killers. They play hard, man. They defend well.
They do.
So, of the 3 games the Lightning have lost, 2 of them against the Islanders, where they've struggled to score, a lot of it has had to do with what the other team is doing themselves defensively, limiting chances. The Penguins did not have a good. That's why you're like Jarry goalied them. The Penguins were not in the same,
ballpark
city as the Islanders defensively, but their goalie bailed them out. And even with that, the Lightning scored 3 goals. Shall I say 4, with the Kucherov one that got taken off the board. So tonight, Toronto has not been a great defensive team, although they're playing better defensively of late. We'll see how this game unfolds.
It's almost like I don't care how Toronto's been playing coming into this game. They should be ready to go for a game like this tonight.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the opponent brings the best out of you, and vice versa, by the way. I think the Lightning need to be ready to go.
Yeah.
On the high stick, because you and I were, along with Phil, we were watching it as it transpired. It took a while for the officials to stop play. In other words, they didn't call anything.
Because I don't think they saw it. And look, that can happen. I mean, look, I don't mind the rule. I don't think it should be for a minor because, I mean, every high stick, are you going to go back and look at every slash? You're going to look at every cross check, et cetera, et cetera. But if a guy is cut and he was legitimately high stick, to the extent that he was cut, it's giving the officials an opportunity to make sure they got the call right. And also, if they got the call wrong. So, like, let's say there's a high stick, a guy is cut. They're like, high sticking double minor. They can go back and look at it and see, this was actually his teammate's stick. No penalty.
That part I agree
like
with.
that. I like
I'm not
that.
disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
What I am quibbling with is the fact that they didn't stop play to look at it until the players from the Islanders bench were like, "Hey, you missed the call."
But I think they would have looked at it anyway. I think once they saw that he was cut, they would have looked at it. But here's the thing: it was kind of like what I was saying with the Kucherov goal against the Islanders that happened with less than 5 seconds. 5 seconds into the threshold where it became an automatic review from the league. If Cizikas is high stick but not cut, they cannot review this. So the fact that he was bleeding, not severely, I mean, he finished the game, right? But, I mean, he got a little time to get mended up because the Islanders were on a long power play and he doesn't play the power play, but he finished the game. He scored an empty net goal. If he's not cut, there's no power play for the Islanders. The Lightning would have gotten away with a high stick unless you're going to make the argument, which was what Coop was saying, suggesting that Hagel's stick was in some way affected. Coop wasn't saying it's not right that they went back and called the penalty because the Islanders bench was calling for it. The guy's cut. You have a right as an official to say, let's take a look at this and make sure that we're getting the call right.
If people want to respond, they can at Bolts Radio. Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum. Smooth, versatile, now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly.
Let's touch on the whole hand pass thing with the Panthers because I know it's like the timing just from if you were just no skin in the game, you're like, the timing of this is delicious. If you were a Lightning fan,
here's a question aligned with that.
Yeah,
Ben Galloway, I'm going to assume, is the name. What are the odds we throw a huge bag of cash at Gregory Campbell so we can move him to the front office and get hockey ops on our side for once? The Marchand hand pass was unreal after the Hagel call. So
yeah, I don't think Ben Galloway feels that this is delicious timing. All right, so I'm going to give you my opinion on this.
I love it.
Which I believe that this is true, and I'm going to give you the reasons why. So in case you're off on Mars somewhere and you missed all this stuff that happened, literally less than 48 hours after the Lightning, and I'll use this word, they were robbed of a point at least because the Situation Room in Toronto made the wrong call on the Hagel hand pass, and I'm stating it that plainly. A very similar play happens on Saturday afternoon in Sunrise between the Panthers and Blue Jackets. Not identical, but similar. I didn't see the whole play, but you've probably seen the clip. Marchand is skating behind the Columbus net. The puck, I'm assuming, gets deflected, but it goes over the net. It's coming at him. He kind of raises his hands and his stick. It looks like the puck actually clips him in the helmet and then hits him in the glove. Ironically, if it hit him in the stick, that is a high stick. That would have been no goal. It doesn't hit the stick, though. It hits his glove, and eventually it bounces next to a Panther. I'm not sure if it bounced to Verhaeghe because I didn't see the whole play, or it bounced to a Panther who got it to Verhaeghe. Verhaeghe scores. Panthers are down 4-1 at that point. They get the goal for 4-2. Columbus challenges, loses the challenge. So this is not the Situation Room making the call. Columbus did the challenge because it was second period. The ruling from the league was the puck deflected off of Marchand's glove, therefore, and no advantage was gained. So we had this whole conversation on the show on Friday, right? About like, what is an advantage gained? What does that even mean? Well, here's a situation where it deflects off his glove and it goes to a teammate and they score. So the goal is allowed to stand. Columbus gets hit with a penalty and the Panthers score in the power play. So now it's 4-3. Then they score on another power play for 4-4. Eventually, Columbus went up 6-4. Panthers rallied to tie it at 6-6 and then won in overtime. So Dean Evison, after the game, like, he looked like he was ready to explode with anger. And he was just like, we played well. The game was a joke. I'm paraphrasing him. I'm not saying the game was a joke. And you'd be like, well, what was he upset about? He wouldn't say. What I think happened was this. We were wondering if John Cooper would get fined for calling the league's ruling on the Hagel hand pass, quote unquote, laughable. You use that word about something that the league decided, you are inviting some sort of discipline from the league.
It's true.
You know what we heard from the league? Crickets.
Crickets. Yeah.
Nothing. So even before the Panther-Columbus game, I was like, the league knows they blew it, right? So probably, this is me guessing, probably what happened, the league is like, we need to get clarification on what is a potential hand pass violation.
Yeah.
Let's review internally. If it's directed, hand pass violation. If it's deflected, except under unusual circumstances, no violation. Literally, the next day, we get the same type of play, and the league got it right. Look, I mean, you can say that it was not fair to the Lightning, and it wasn't fair to the Lightning. That Marchand play should have been a goal. Marchand didn't direct it to a team. I watched the replay. It hit his glove. That's the way the rules should be called.
Aaron says he kind of agrees. He says it was slightly different than the Hagel because it wasn't directed to a teammate. But what the heck? Meaning
they use the language. Like we said, Hagel didn't direct it to Gensel. So if you're going to say Hagel directed it to Gensel, you give yourself the opportunity to say no goal. I think what they realized was the Hagel play wasn't directed. That's why John Cooper was not fined on that play for his comments. Otherwise, we would have seen something. I think the league recognized they blew it with the Lightning Pittsburgh game. And they're like, we need to get everybody on the same page about, like, what is a violation? They got everyone on the same page. I'm not saying they listened to Power Lunch and listened to what I said on Friday, but we get a very similar play. And and they allowed the goal to stand. But had they said Marchand directed it, they wouldn't have said Marchand directed it. Marchand didn't direct it, but neither did Hagel. They got the call right in the Panther game.
Yeah.
But here's the byproduct, Greg. If you're Columbus and you're Dean Evison and you're aware of what happened between the Lightning and Penguins a day and a half earlier, and you see the same play and you're like, they just took away this goal
right
2 nights ago. I'm challenging. That's why he was so ticked, I think. So the lack of consistency was one thing. The other thing was, I think the Columbus Blue Jackets actually felt that because this same play had been ruled no goal, they challenged. Had the Hagel play been allowed to stand, I don't think Columbus challenges. So, I mean, you get this whole like ripple effect of this one blown decision. That's the way I'm going to put it. Now, maybe I'm speaking too strongly, but, you know, to me, they made the wrong call. On Saturday, they made the right call, but Columbus felt that a precedent had been set. I'm kind of putting out a lot of stuff here. This is a lot of conjecture on my part, but if you connect the dots, this is how I see it. Of course, the cynics out there would say this is favoritism to the Panthers, Gregory Campbell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Look, that's going to continue because, again, the Panthers got the benefit of the call. It helped them get back in the game, and they won the game. If that call goes against Florida, it stays 4-1. Who knows if the Panthers even get a point out of that game? Instead, they got the benefit of the call, they got back in the game, and they got 2 points.
You wonder if the NHL, and they're not going to do this, would take a page out of the NFL's playbook, no pun intended, where they issue the apology afterwards, publicly.
Yeah, I don't know.
We missed the call in this game.
You can't assume that the Lightning, had that goal been able to stand, would have gotten a point because there was still a minute to go. I mean, It's possible Pittsburgh could have scored in the last minute, but let's be honest. The Lightning lost a point as a result, and maybe 2. So you have to move on.
Aaron says, man, these next 2 games feel big. I'm sure we have been here before, but this feels like one of the worst injury seasons for the Bolts in recent memory.
Well, I mean, the benefit is that, I mean, these players have not really been out. I guess 12 games for Hedman is long-term, and McDonough as well is now kind of long-term. But, Vasilevsky's day-to-day, and we're getting, we being, following the team, Point is back in the lineup tonight. Kucherov is back in the lineup tonight after missing 1. The Maple Leafs we didn't really even get into it, but they've not been immune to injuries. At different points this year, they've been without Matthews. They've been without Nyes, 2 of their best offensive players, and they've gone much of the year without maybe their most valuable defenseman in Tanev. He was such a difference maker for them last year on the blue line. He set the franchise record for block shots in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and whenever they started tracking block shots. But, I mean, nobody has blocked more shots in a season than Chris Tanev did for the Toronto Maple Leafs last year, and he's barely played. I mean, he was on the ice this morning. I don't think he's back yet. And then compounding that more recently, but not that recent, Brandon Carlo went out.
Sure.
Carlo and Tanev are their top 2 right-handed defensemen. So after Carlo got injured, they grabbed Troy Stecher on waivers. And he's been doing okay for Toronto, but I mean, those are significant losses. They're without both their goalies right now. Wohl and Stolars are both hurt. So Dennis Hildeby will make his first appearance ever against the Lightning. So, I mean, it's not just the Lightning. Toronto has had injuries too.
Well, and the elephant in the room a little bit there is have they truly moved on with Mitch Marner not being there? That takes a long time, understanding what he meant for Austin Matthews and what he meant collectively.
They got more sandpapery, if that's the right way of putting it, and that might have been organizational choice. It might have been to fit the mold of a Craig Berube type team because, I mean, that's how he played. I think the Blues had a lot of that when they won the Stanley Cup with Berube as the head coach. So in the trade, it was a trade. They traded Marner. They got Nick Waugh. He's a very good depth forward who plays a sandpaper style of game, and he's scored basically between 13 and 15 goals every year going back the last 4 years for Vegas. That's not easily done when you're the 4th line center. It's not like he's getting power play time. I mean, he's you can mark him down. 13, 14, 15 goals with Vegas. He has, I think, 2 this year with Toronto. But he wasn't the only guy. They got this Dakota Joshua, who'd been in St. Louis and Vancouver. Like, he has sandpaper to his game. So what you're losing in Marner is the playmaking capacity that has hurt them. I mean, it has, honestly. You're not going to be able to replace what Marner provided, but I think in their mind, they're like, in the playoffs, we are getting grittier, basically. And they have to do well enough in the regular season to get in the playoffs.
To get there, yeah.
Yeah. So what's interesting is about their team, they are scoring, even in Marner's absence. They're 5th right now in goals scored per game, primarily because, Nylander, Tavares, and when they've been healthy, Matthews and Nyes have been doing a lot of the heavy lifting. They have not been good defensively. They entered this game tied for 23rd in goals odd per game, 3.29. That's just not going to get it done. You'd rather be where the Lightning are at more recently, where you're not getting points, but you're defending well. Toronto cannot continue to outscore their problems, and Craig Berube knows it. He called them out a couple of weeks ago. They've gotten better defensively in recent games, and that has coincided with them going, 3-1-1, I think, in their last 5, 4-1-1 in their last 6, and they've held the other team to 2 or less in 5 of the 6. You hold the other team to 2 or less, you're going to get points. That's what they've done. Can they keep it up, though? And can they keep it up without these injuries on defense, too, and the goaltending injuries as well?
That's why tonight is a big one for the Lightning. I think you might be able to take advantage of that. Plus, you've got the Point and Kucherov factor coming back. Local Nomad says over this 3-game skid, the Lightning haven't had a lead for 160 consecutive minutes, either tied or trailing. Haven't been able to force any scoreboard pressure.
Yeah, there's an element of truth to that. I mean, let's be honest, though. The game on Saturday was tied for much of the game. So it wasn't really they were chasing. I thought that they were more in chase mode against a really good defensive team in the Islanders on Tuesday, and that had an impact. Pittsburgh was so loose defensively on Thursday that even though they went up 3-0, you had the feeling that maybe the Lightning could chip away, and they did. It was really the question of solving Tristan Jarry, which they were able to do 3 times to get the game tied at 3 before they fell behind for good.
Jim says, I love Dave because of his rational takes, but sometimes I wish he wasn't rational so I could feel confirmed in my sometimes homer views.
Well, if you're talking about bias from Toronto, I will never believe that somebody who's earning a paycheck from the league would risk that by showing and feeling bias and allowing it to affect their decisions. Sometimes calls don't go your way. I may be completely wrong about what I said about how this all unfolded between the Hagel hand pass and the Marchand hand pass, but in my opinion, that is the most generous interpretation from the league, because I don't know how you can look at those 2 plays and say these are different. One play, it was directed, therefore no goal. The other play, it wasn't directed, therefore good goal. To me, they were the same. So why were they viewed differently? Why was John Cooper not fined for calling the Hagel play and the disallowed goal laughable, the decision? That's why I felt the way that I felt. Why was Dean Evison so incensed after the game? I mean, yes, his team blew a lead, but he wasn't really calling out his team. He was more upset about the circumstances in the game. And I guess his team got called for other penalties that maybe he wasn't thrilled with, but that's how I interpreted it.
Local Nomad says, also through 15 games at home, 7 regulation losses is near the most in the league.
Yeah, that's not ideal, as we have said, but the last 2, they could have gotten points out of them. So I think early in the year, that was legitimate. They lost the 2 games at home in lopsided fashion to the Rangers in Vancouver, but that was in the stretch of a time where the Lightning were playing very well otherwise and playing well in the games that they won at home. So, look, the stats are the stats. You can't really ignore that. And that number is going to have to get better, like the ratio of wins to regulation losses at home. But, I mean, the Lightning are still at 34 points through 28 games. That's very, very good. So they've only lost, 3 in regulation? Am I right about that? 3 in regulation on the road? So they've offset kind of those struggles at home by doing really well away from home so far.
Thomas says, when it comes down to it, not being able to fix the power play has cost this team about 10 points in my estimate. It's too stagnant. Not sure what they can do here.
For the season, I agree with you. By the way, Toronto is having the same issues, shockingly. Toronto's power play is worse than the Lightning's percentage-wise, 14.1%. I mean, it's not like Matthews has missed 3/4 of the season. Nyes, I think, missed 3 or 4 games.
Is it really the Marner effect?
Well, maybe. But I mean, they have good players out there. They have Tavares, they have Matthews, they have Nyes, they have Nylander, they have Morgan Rielly. At one point, they were going with 5 forwards, and I think they've switched back to Rielly. So it's not only the Lightning. Maybe you can make that argument for the Leafs, too. I'm not going to argue with Thomas's point, except that I will say the last couple of games you have to take a little bit with a grain of salt because the Lightning did enough to score against Pittsburgh, and Jari was the difference, and they had some bad luck there. And against the Islanders, I mean, they had to put the power play basically into a blender because they were missing Kucherov, and you had guys in unfamiliar positions. Their first unit had 5 lefties on it. And I'm thinking, I don't think one of those lefties from the first unit on Saturday is on the first unit tonight.
So, there was a...
Maybe Gensel. Gensel would have been the only one. Sorry.
Well, it's going to be an interesting point when he comes back, and if you still feel like Bjorkstrand being on the power play unit number 1, if that's where you want to go, where would you put a guy like that? Because there have been talk about maybe moving Point on the opposite wall of Kucherov and maybe producing a one-timer more so than Bjorkstrand, who, as we're finding out, that's really not his game per se. It's kind of in that bumper where he can snap it off quicker. But I tend, if that's part of the thinking at all, and I have no idea if that's the case, but if that is the thinking to have those guys be on the same power play unit, I just have a hard time taking the guy who is a proven 40-goal scorer in this league out of his comfort zone to a degree to appease somebody who's in that 20-goal scoring career average just to get him going. Mm-hmm. I think that, to answer the question, I think they need to figure that out, and if that means attacking the power play differently, that is fine. I just wouldn't remove Point from the bumper, whether he's struggling or not.
Well,
I think he's earned that.
Yeah, they have him there.
So let's see how that.
But
plays out.
So let's hope Bjorkstrand got a little confidence from the chances that he got in the bumper, because if I am expecting what I'm expecting to see tonight is what we have seen through much of the year when Braden Point has been in the bumper, which is the penalty kill unit is zeroing in on him. They are like, whoop, which means that there's a little bit more room kind of around the horn. You also have Radish as a one-time option, which you didn't have with Hedman. If Kucherov can't get the puck to Point, he can go to Radish for a one-timer. If Radish can get it through, it's kind of bunched up in the middle of the ice if those penalty killers are closing in on Point. I will mention this because Anthony, I know, is one of our loyal listeners or viewers who is often talking about screening the goalie. The second unit, which has 5 lefties on it, I mentioned Hedman was the defenseman. And again, Dominic James is injured. So, I mean, he wasn't even on the ice. So your other 4 lefties in addition to Hedman were Hagel, Cirelli, Paul, and Gonsalves.
Right.
You had a double screen set up in front. You had Paul kind of at the hash marks, and you had Cirelli closer to the goalie. You had Hagel on the left, Gonsalves on the right, Hedman in the middle. So the first unit really doesn't do the double screen very often. I mean, yeah, Gensel sometimes will go to the front of the net, so I guess I just feel like we don't really see that as a set up. This second unit was doing it. So however much time they get, depending on how many power plays the Lightning have, depending on how the first unit does, we may see more of a meat and potatoes type of approach. And if the power play is going to run through Hagel, which it kind of did the other night, Hagel's pass to Hedman does set up the one-timer. If you're going to have 5 lefties, whoever is at that left circle has to be doesn't have to be, but it would help if that player is the kind of the chef.
Yeah.
making the meal You can go to Hedman for a one-timer. You can go across to Gonsalves for a one-timer. You can go to the bumper for Paul for a one-timer. So that person has to make the right decision with the puck. You know, the Lightning talked about with Sorokin, they're going to see him again, I'm certain, on Saturday. You know, the one thing that the players said, you know, we generated chances, but maybe we need to do a better job of taking away his eyes. So, you know, we'll see if just in general the Lightning, especially against the Islanders, but maybe even moving through this road trip, if they have a concerted effort and make a concerted effort to get in front of the goalie and screen and take away the goalie's eyes.
Ask and you shall receive. Sorelli said that right.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a tight check and match for, you know, a full 60. They play good defensive system there. You know, I think maybe just, you know, the goalie played well. Maybe just trying to get in his eyes a little bit more, try and get some more shots there. But like I said, you know, you're not going to score. Well, you can't win the game.
He's right.
Actually, you could if it's 0-0 into the shootout, which the Islanders had one of those not that long ago. I guess then you're scoring. You're scoring. Yeah, the Islanders actually got shut out but won the game. That's one of those statistical anomalies that became possible only when the shootout entered the NHL.
Chris says Tampa 101 man games lost, Toronto 79 games lost for reference.
Yeah.
That's the Lightning have to
Those
be in
are
the top
pretty
5.
big numbers.
They have to be in the top 5.
I thought it was more than 101 because I thought I heard maybe it was the last game. I thought I heard Ben talk about Lightning were over 100 man games lost before the last game. So if it was before the last game, they would certainly be more than 101.
First one to find that from our audience doesn't get a prize, but I'll give you a shout out.
Well, it's in the game notes, so I can actually. Ben actually has it in the game notes. So
go, Ben.
I didn't even know that Ben was under the weather. I'm glad Ben's back. I have to find him, and I saw him briefly before the game on Saturday. I'm like, you weren't here. He's like, yeah, it's been a long week.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad he's back.
Yeah, glad he's doing better. Sure. I'm looking for the injury stuff.
While you're doing that, partner, Miles says, has there been a player who has scored as consistently against the Lightning in the past couple of years as Matthew Knies? I looked it up. He's got 10 goals and 16 points in 9 games against us.
Knies plays very well against the Lightning, and he played well against the Lightning in the playoffs, too. The current man game number is 104, so that probably 101 number was before the last game. Although Lightning had more than 3 guys out last game, didn't they? I mean, they definitely did. Anyway, it's over 100. So in that one game that the Lightning lost in overtime, Knies was terrific in that game. He had the overtime winner. I think he had a power play goal early in the third that gave the Leafs a 3-2 lead. He plays well against the Lightning. But so does Matthews, so does Tavares, so does Nylander.
Steve just texted us of all the players that were out.
I mean, the Maple Leafs in the games between the teams last year, now there were some empty netters in there, but in the first 3 games they scored at least, I think they scored 5, but at least 5. They may have hit 6 in one of them. At least 5 goals in all 3 games, and then in the overtime game they scored 4. I mean, they're at least last year's Leafs team. Their greatest weapons are their offensive players. And if you're going to give up 4 to 5 goals a game, you're going to have a very, very hard time winning. I understand that, you know, the Leafs have not had a great defensive year this year. But last year, you know, with Berube, they've tried to get better defensively. And they were a top half defensive team last year. You have to try and limit their dangerous players, and the Lightning just haven't done that well enough. Whether it's they've gotten open, or people were like, Vasilevsky doesn't play as well against Toronto, and you know some of this is on him. Johansson was in the one game where they scored 4 on him, and Marner got the empty netter. I remember that game here in Toronto.
Credit to Steve Ersnick, our producer, who comes through. 104 man games lost this season so far.
Yeah, I think I just said that though.
Did you say that?
Yeah, you were focused.
I was looking at some questions here.
Yes, you were looking at questions. I think Steve
Dave Mishkin, you are right.
Out. Well, I looked at the notes. He had who was out last game. So the last game, McDonough, Chernak, Point, Cooch, and Vasi. So they would have been a 99 last game. So maybe I heard Ben say it during the broadcast on Saturday.
Come on.
They got over 100. But, tonight they're going to have McDonough and Chernak and Vasilevsky and James injured. So, you have to designate the player as being injured. If he's not on IR and he's out,
yeah, right.
Like John Cooper has to say Kucherov day to day, right? Therefore, we know.
Boy, James,
is Douglas technically an injured scratch tonight, or is he a healthy scratch?
Yeah,
unclear. So you do the best you can.
James has kind of gone up and down, hasn't he, with the injury bug a little
he's
bit
been
here.
unlucky.
It's been tough.
I didn't even see what happened to him.
Yeah.
The Douglas play got checked and seemed to hurt his leg.
I did want to play this from Coop because Johansson, we talked about, is going to be playing a little bit more here.
Yeah, you feel bad for him because, we give one up with under 3 minutes to go the other night, and now we give one, I don't know, was it 6 or 7 minutes left? And so you feel for him because he's playing great for us. And we're just, we're not giving him the run support. In the end, you can say whatever you want about the game. We didn't score. And he had 60 minutes, and I don't know, we had 70-plus shot attempts. We got to sneak one by him, and we didn't.
Yep.
There you go. It's...
Thank you, John Cooper.
You need to score.
By the way, the Lightning did apparently activate point off IR, so
okay,
kind of expected after watching the team run lines during the skate.
Let me go through a few more questions here that we didn't get to. They're all kind of the same, partner. They're all kind of the same,
Complaining about hand passes and the team needs to stop losing.
We did get. There are a few questions about like Bjorkstrand, and I don't think he's coming out of the lineup. I know there's been some people who are disappointed. Look, nobody more disappointed than Bjorkstrand. Maybe Julian Breezewell, but
right.
You gotta hope that it just you get one and maybe 5 follow. I don't know what else to say. I did want to mention
he hit the crossbar against the Islanders.
He did.
Snapshot from pretty far out, hit the top of the crossbar.
I forgot to mention this at the beginning because we got into so many things, but I felt like that last game, the Gord line had a lot of juice, which was great to see. And I thought Jack Finley was close.
Yeah, he had a couple of
looks, right? It's like either the puck rolled off his stick but he had a burst, and it looked like there was an opportunity for him to make a play offensively. So, don't know what that's about. Maybe that's just him getting a little more playing time and hey, I'm in the lineup. I don't want to come out, and I'm going to make a play. He was close. I actually thought Douglas that might have been his best game outside of fighting since he's been a member of the Lightning. He had that chance where he dove.
He did have a chance, yes.
I just felt like he looked... This is probably the wrong way to say it. He looked a little bit more like a complete hockey player in that game rather than somebody who did a stage fight against Boko Imama. Right. He was doing things along the wall. He was making some passes.
A 5-on-5 sort of game.
Yeah.
There were only... Before the double minor on Hagel, there were only 3 penalties called leading to power plays. So we had a lot of 5-on-5 time, and maybe more than in some other games recently, John Cooper rolled the line. So it was good for Douglas. A couple of closing points. Just one is hurrah, and I think he led the stretch at the end of the skate. Pontus Holmberg's first game back against his former team.
Yes.
And I was a little surprised to see he played 159 games with the Leafs. So he was a draft pick, and he'd reached restricted free agent status with arbitration rights, which is why the Leafs didn't qualify him and the Lightning were able to get him. But 159 games, that's a fair amount of hockey he played for them the last few years. So good for him, and hopefully, I agree with you, the Gord line had a good game against the Islanders. Hopefully he will be extremely pumped to play against his former team. I'm going to leave with this, and we can talk about this tomorrow and see how much of a factor it was. Hopefully not much of one. The Toronto Maple Leafs, brace yourself here, Lightning fans who have been following this particular stat for the Lightning all year. Toronto Maple Leafs are the number 1 faceoff team in the NHL. Ottawa is close, but where the Leafs are at is insanely high. as a team, they're winning over 57% of faceoffs. Some of the best individual guys in the league are at 57. They're at 57 as a team. They have two of the best in the league in Tavares, who's over 60%, and Matthews, who's very good. But Nick Waugh is very good. He's well over 50. And the other guy who usually takes them for them is Domi, who's also over 50%. This is a huge, huge advantage for the Leafs all year, but especially against the Lightning, who don't have one player other than Gensel, who takes them in spot situations. They don't have one of their regular centermen over 50%. So when you look at, like, the Leafs get a power play, who's going to win the draw? Like, if the Leafs win the draw, they're going to start with possession in the offensive zone. D-zone faceoffs for Toronto. Can the Lightning, an icing? Can the Lightning keep the Leafs pinned out there on the ice? You lose the faceoff, maybe they're able to execute and get out of trouble. So let's see how the Lightning do in that one statistical category. Tonight is going to be a challenge for them. And that's maybe where Finley will see some activity, because the guys that I mentioned, except for Waugh, are all lefties.
Right.
And Waugh's not going to take power play faceoffs for them. So who knows? They may send Finley out there to take a draw against Tavares on the power play for Toronto, or Matthews, whoever might take it. We'll see.
We'll be on the air at 7. It's going to be a long pregame part.
Yeah. Amazon Prime game and 7:30 start, so it's actually, close to 7:50 puck drop.
But listen, you can
You have
listen
some
to me
extra
for more.
stuff planned in pregame?
I don't think so. Tune in.
Just going to wing it.
Tune in. We'll have our panel. And I
Yeah.
know Jared Johnson, our broadcast assistant, is going to be putting together a good feature that we'll play. And you and I will be recapping this game.
Yes, we
talking
will.
about more tomorrow at noon. All right.
First meeting between the Lightning Canadians tomorrow,
That's right.
too.
Should be a good one.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. I will talk to you in a little bit tonight.
Yeah. Have a good afternoon.
Great job, as always. And thanks to Steve Ersnick and Jared Johnson. We appreciate you guys. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.